Hey, everybody, and welcome. Jonathan Broadbent here, your host of UnWoke.Academy. Welcome to another live stream episode. We are going live. I'm double checking now. I think that we are live on Facebook. We've got a dedicated page on Facebook. I know, don't get me started on Facebook. Woke left stuff. We still have a lot of people there. And so that therefore I've been convinced to maintain a page on Facebook. So we're on Facebook, YouTube. Yes, I know that includes some of its own wrinkles and difficulties. X and Rumble. If you're on one of those platforms, be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, you name it. Speaking of comments, I am going to toggle over here. And if you're on one of those platforms and have the ability to comment or ask a question, feel free. Shoot the questions my way. I will say in the a little over 2 years that I've been doing this podcast, and we now have over 21 million views, which is astounding to me. I don't think that I've ever looked forward to an episode like I look forward to today. I have so much stuff packed into today's discussion that you're going to love this. By the way, everything that I'm bringing up here is free and open to the public on UnWoke.Academy. We do exhaustive research into all sorts of different issues. Just by way of example, if you're on the social media platform X, formerly Twitter, a few years ago, and actually in two different cycles, we had companies trying to take their ad revenue, or actually most of them did. They subtracted their ad revenue from X, trying to force Elon Musk to implement free speech restrictions. And we did research into those companies. At one point, there were 51 different companies, and we reported on the ownership of those companies and the institutional owners. That means things like mutual funds. So there are big companies out there that take revenue from us, we the people, and then they use our revenue. They use money from us to do really bad things. So we expose that stuff. I like to suggest thinking of UnWoke.Academy as the place where the free market economy meets follow the money. We do a lot of research into the companies and what makes them tick, what they're doing, what they're not doing well, and those companies that go woke. Candidly, we're seeing it in sports. Just using another analogy, I see it all the time now, and especially now that we're into Pride Month, we're seeing all kinds of sports franchises out there that are on both sides of the battle. I have seen some sports teams, actually some of them I don't really much care for as a kind of a sports enthusiast, but there are some teams that are fighting back, which is good. And but we have some leagues that are putting the rainbow flag on everything and trying to promote that rather than focus on the mission at hand, which is a great segue to today's conversation, because I will say, and this is a part of the reason that, sorry, I think I've got a hair here. I'm one of those people that if you've ever seen that meme, of that person who knows that they're right and stands in a room full of people telling them all that they're wrong. I have been that person for the last several years. I'm former Wall Street. I left Wall Street. I worked in institutional finance. I still do, actually, just for myself now. But years ago, I worked on Wall Street and I worked with some of the big players, actually, a lot of them. I worked all across the country, from north to south, east to west, in most of the states. I did all kinds of stuff. And I know Wall Street well. I actually was there and lived through 2008 working on Wall Street. And interestingly, at that time, I saw some behavior on Wall Street. This will factor into our discussion today. But I saw some behavior having to do with pensions and how they're funded and who gets the money that I balked at. I didn't approve of certain behaviors. And I wrote up this big letter. And actually, silly me, I thought I was there on Wall Street to do my job. I released this letter and I was very promptly threatened with legal action if I pursued this and spoke out and everything. And then eventually, I got to the point where we parted ways, and I signed a document that I would not defame or discredit or whatever, blah blah blah, in order to not have the wrath of Wall Street crushing me with their legal armies. But that gave me the beginnings of glimpses into how Wall Street works. And I formed a company to operate in sort of proximity to and oversee certain aspects of Wall Street. That eventually became UnWoke.Academy. But where I've been for the last several years, running UnWoke.Academy, and then I don't know if you know this, if you've been watching my podcast a couple of years ago, I actually was given all of Second Vote. If you followed Second Vote online, that website, it's now closed, at least for the time being. I'd love to get to the point where we've got the staff and operating capital and everything that we need to bring it back to life, because Second Vote was so valuable. But I actually am in possession of that. And 10 years of research that went into tracking corporate behaviors relative to Wall Street. But I was one of those people. I am one of those people that formed UnWoke, and I stand observing Wall Street, looking into their actions, their behaviors, the money managers, credit and lending, all of it, everything I can get access to. I scour it and look through, and then I comment on it for UnWoke because, well, candidly, because I'm patriotic and I love my country and I love Western values and all of that stuff. And there should be room to not have the alternative. And the alternative, people couch it in different ways, but I call it global communism. And I'll get in a moment to what I call the globalist bubble. But having spent those last several years outside of Wall Street and knowing how things work, how they're supposed to work, seeing what's been broken and being sort of that odd man out, I'm one of very few who is pointing the finger and telling Wall Street, you're wrong. Well, I want to share something with you. I'm going to switch my background. We're going to talk about the America First policy statement, which was issued by Donald Trump on February 21st of this year, and how this is critically important. In my book, this stands out as probably one of the most important things that Donald Trump has done in his political career. I've been talking about it for weeks. I've been all over everywhere that will host me, X Spaces, radio spots, TV, you name it. I've been advocating for this thing because more people need to know that it exists, what it is, what it's designed for, how it functions, and how this is created. It's there to make America great again. And of course, we've got politicians and woke Wall Street and the media. It's crickets. They're not even talking about it. But I'm going to share a different screen with you because this one is actually a big part of, looks like I need to pull my, banners, layers, I don't even remember. Let me get rid of this logo. I'm going to hide the logo. There we go. So now you can more clearly see the screen behind me. I've got some episodes that are coming out, and this is kind of at the core of one of the things we're going to be talking about. This is me saying, "Hey, Wall Street, you know those last several years where I've really been holding your feet to the fire and asking about the woke in your investment management? Why are you doing it? And why does it seem that virtually every mutual fund out there, or most of them, have migrated into nearly identical portfolios? What is that?" And when you say, I'm talking to the money managers, investment managers, things like mutual funds, the stuff you're going to find in your 401k and IRA and places like it, when I go to them, and I I literally last year, 2024, I released a request for information to money managers all across Wall Street. I found everyone that I could find an email address for, and all the ones that I know through decades of work on Wall Street. And I contacted all of them and said, "Explain yourself. Explain the use of ESG, DEI, which is CRT masquerading as something new, and all of that stuff. What's the woke stuff? Define it." Because you have to have definable metrics if you're going to be redirecting trillions of dollars of US investments. And I got exactly zero formal answers. I did get some sort of casual emails and lots of phone calls. I've been talking to people for about 4 years on the phone. Overwhelmingly, I'll sum up the response that I get from investment managers by saying that they tell me, and a lot of these are people at a very high level in those companies that you think of when you think of finance. I've had occasion to fly out often and meet in person and do due diligence trips into those investment managers. And because of that, and because of I've been on the review boards and decision making behind many billions of dollars of US mostly retirement savings, endowments, foundations, pensions, you name it. That's what I do. I've gone to those managers through casual conversation, phone calls, and that request for information and said, "Explain it. Tell me in your terms, in your words, what is broken? What is causing you to want to redirect the trillions of dollars that you have under management?" And I have exactly zero solid answers. All of it then, in my book, falls to virtue signaling. Because if they can't define it to me and they can't define it to you, and if I look through websites and their quarterly reports and their annual earnings reports and their shareholder meetings, and I hear them talk about they're going to make the world, it's social justice. We're going to make the world a better place by steering investments into blah blah blah, whatever the latest climate action program or whatever. My position is unchanged from the day that I started working in finance over 25 years ago. And that is, if you're doing something, you have to have a reason for doing it. It can't just simply be a veneer. It can't be a label. So great. If you're telling me that the world is going to burn up, or that the oceans are going to rise, or the polar bears are going to die, or that there's social injustice by racial division, great. Define that for me. You must, if you're managing, and just so you know and have this in context, in the US, there's an estimated $35.7 trillion in retirement savings. That's self directed, that's IRAs, 401ks, and things like it. So if we're talking about almost $36 trillion, and we have all these managers who've collectively, losing my voice. I'm so excited about this episode. I'm losing my voice. If they've collectively agreed to funnel virtually everybody into just those companies that check the boxes, that they have a diverse, I'm air quoting that, a diverse board, and their sexual identity of certain board members and everything. Okay, if you're doing that with $36 trillion of the future retirement earnings of our great American workforce, and of course this applies to throughout the world, if you're doing that, how are you defining it? What is your explanation for it? And what are the road marks along the way to prove that whatever it is that you're doing is fixing the thing that you're saying is broken? I've been asking that question on behalf of my clients in the world and the Unwoke audience, now a little over 21 million viewers or views in total. I don't know how many total viewers. I think many of them are repeat. I've been asking, what's the answer? Why are you doing it? And I have zero answer. Zero. Not one can tell me anything tangible and specific. So what we did, and what you're seeing behind me, is the UnWoke.Academy. Just a brief glimpse into history here. We started it to reveal all this stuff and to do the things that I do best, which is research and due diligence and reporting, investment manager searches, and ultimately, I'll tell you what I tell investment managers. My job is pretty simple. If I'm operating on behalf of other people's money, which is what I do professionally, I have to go out and find the very best managers, whatever their category they fill. If it's a large cap, which means that they invest in large companies, or a small cap, or domestic, which means they invest in US or global, whatever it is they're investing in, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, my job is to find the best of the best and then figure out what they're doing and look over their shoulder and make sure that they're good at it and they stay good at it and that nobody else comes along that proves better. All of that is broken right now when we have so many managers, so much of Wall Street that bought into this social agenda and effectively put so many people into virtually identical investments. I did an episode to reveal that. I called it, it's in order to protect the identity of a family that shared with me their personal financial circumstances. We called it Yosemite Sam. Yosemite Sam and his family. Yes, of course, that's a cartoon name. Yosemite Sam and his family have worked really hard and saved up a pretty good amount of money. That money across many different types of accounts, maybe the wife's 401k and the husband's 401k and a rollover from a previous employer and an IRA account to contribute to. We took all of it. It's public. You can go and watch the episode. I show you. I've blocked out personal information and called it all Yosemite Sam. But you can see the kids' college savings accounts and all of that stuff. There are something like 40 different mutual funds and things like them. Well, we lifted the hood on those, and the commonality, the sameness of those mutual funds is horrifying. And this family is paying, I think we figured out, I ballparked around $7,000 or $8,000 per year in advisor fees and investment management fees to get not diversified. And in the world of investing, that's kind of a golden rule. And it's certainly something that this family desires and is pursuing and thought that they had until we came along and lifted the hood. That's happened. That's happened in mutual funds and things like them because they went woke. So many of them they drank the Kool-Aid. They bought this narrative that they're going to make the world a better place if they all just invest in these 40-ish funds. Well, two things kind of simultaneously. One is at one point last year, and actually in the lead up to 2024, we were pressured into, and it's understandable. We have an audience that said, okay, great. So you did a big expose on BlackRock and you did one on Vanguard and you've talked about State Street and some of the shortcomings and some of the reasons we might not like those investments, but what are the good investments? So we kind of went back to the drawing board and retooled things, and we launched the Financial PMA, that stands for Private Membership Association. There's no obligation to join that. If you're interested, you can go to financialpma.com. That's the website. If you want to join up, great, come on over. We'd love to have you. If you work in finance or know somebody that does, great. Send them to the website and tell them to duplicate all the things that we're doing because we need thousands of these all over the country. We need to shift away from Wall Street. And just an analogy occurs to me, because I've been following Angel Studios and I like the movies that they're coming out with. And I want to actually go and see that The Last Rodeo before it's out of the theaters, but that's unrelated. The point, an analogy I want to draw is people are seeing woke Hollywood for what it is, and people are balking. People want something as an alternative to Hollywood, and people are doing the same with Disney. They want a healthier alternative that's not woke. Well, what the heck? We need the same thing for Wall Street, because the revolving door between Wall Street and DC and the connections to big pharma and all of that stuff should it should be front of mind for more people. I got into a tangent there. Anyway, we we were we were encouraged to start building and encouraging portfolios. So the private membership organization, the Private Membership Association, PMA, formed, and we gave all of our research data, and lots of people started trading on all kinds of different platforms. It was one of the cool things. There's several cool things about the PMA. One is it's designed to try and maximize privacy for you, which doesn't exist on Wall Street. The data mining in finance is egregious and awful. And if you think your cell phone is bad for data mining you, look at your finances. Look at banking and investments and Wall Street and all that stuff. It's really bad. So we formed the PMA and we started encouraging portfolio building. We don't care where it is. If you have a discount stock trading platform online or an app or something, great, go for it. Take the research that we're doing. That's this list over here. I have to line my finger up. You can see these are investments that we research and continue to research and report on and have encouraged. Well, on October 7th, last year, 2024, somebody convinced me personally to do the trades for them. It's not how I designed the PMA, it's not my intention, but I did the trades and I have access to view the account. And in this portfolio, this is a person with 3 different accounts that represents some hard-earned savings. I want to put it into context. From October 7th through May 27th, 2025, so that's a little under 8 months. During that time frame, according to S&P Global, it's a website, S&P Global.com, the S&P 500, which is often used as a benchmark, returned 2.96%. I'm going to save for another podcast what I consider to be the manipulations of indexes. But let's just take that at face value. If you invested your money on October 7th in something designed to replicate the S&P 500, you'd have somewhere a little under 3%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average for that same time frame, according to, I think we used Yahoo Finance for this one. I always want to use publicly available sources for this data. You can look it up as well. The Dow, according to my research for that same time frame, returned 0.63%. Now, this portfolio, you can see the numbers up here, same time frame. We invested on October 7th, and then I took a yardstick and measured performance on May 27th, 2025. A little under 8 months later, we have an average of all the investments that we recommended, average return of 42.79%. With a weighted average, that means some of the investments received a little bit more dollar, a little bit more weighted deposit, and some a little less, depended on the share price. And the weighted average return for that portfolio is 33.03%. So, yeah, this is me saying, hey, Wall Street, hey, remember me? The guy that got in big trouble in 2008 for writing that letter admonishing what I consider to be illicitly illegal bad behavior, and then you threatened me. Here I am outside of Wall Street watching what you're doing and calling you out. I'm calling out the woke, the ESG use, the DEI use. I'm going to release an episode that talks about the research and the types of answers I've been getting back from those managers who were doing mutual funds. And I think for a period of time, it was easy. It was just like shooting fish in a barrel to slap a label of sustainable or environmental or whatever, I'm air quoting those, put that label on some investment and the money just flowed in because everyone it's called greenwashing. And I believe that virtually everybody has been subjected to it. It's a big gotcha. It's a big rug pull. By the way, I don't expect there's anybody listening to this live stream podcast. Oh, I have to go back to comments. By the way, it looks like we have some people who've just joined us. If you just joined, go back to the beginning. I kind of set the stage for today's conversation, talking about woke Wall Street and investments, etc. But if you have any questions, feel free to post those on whatever platform you're viewing this on. I should see those, and if I can, I'll include those in the conversation and get answers to you. So one of my plans ultimately is to get, so far, I just as a side note for anybody else who does podcasting, Ken Walls from Breakthrough Walls was a guest on my program a few months ago and mentioned that the software we were using, there's a better alternative. So this is probably my 15th go at using software called EVMux. I think I've got the hang of it now, but if an error occurs or I don't include you, I chalk it up to that. At some point in the future, my plan is to have a producer in studio. We do have a nice studio here I've built, who will help me manage these things. But for now, if you have questions, post them. I am keeping an eye on that, and we'll try to incorporate it. Back to the conversation here. This stuff all falls under the category of defund the woke, and there's a lot more connected to it, if I'm right. And we have a bunch of investments that are artificially propped up, that have artificially high market cap, the stock price, artificially high stock price. And actually, I'm going to pause right there to inject a comment that I heard from an economist recently. I listen to a lot of shows and podcasts, and I join in on a lot of conversations from economists and people like me who work in finance. This economist made a very compelling comment. He said that if you believe in the current stock price of Apple stock, then you believe that everybody is going to live in Apple homes, drive Apple cars, wear Apple devices, and stream Apple services. It's ridiculous. And the fact that we still have mutual funds out there and people contributing to 401k plans, dutifully feeling like they're saving for retirement, and that money, so much of it going into a very small number of globalist, overfunded investments is completely counterintuitive. And as a note, if you haven't already watched the episode that I did, there are two actually I suggest for you. One is Parade of Woke Sameness, where I showed actually in visual form, I lifted the hood on a whole bunch of different mutual funds, some of the most deposited in mutual funds in 401k plans in the United States. And I revealed that they're virtually identical, slight differences. And they all have these different sounding names, which is, of course, designed to attract your attention. We're going to be the elite, global, mega, ultra, they put these cutesy sounding names. If that is a real mutual fund, then that's accidental. I'm just trying to illustrate a point. Those mutual funds overwhelmingly have allowed themselves, instead of doing investment research and the hard work of due diligence into fundamentals, what is a good investment inside of the mutual fund? What's a bad investment? And are the investments reasonable? And if it's good, how are they keeping track of it over time to make sure that it stays good? If we have so much of Wall Street that decided that none of that matters anymore, and they're willing to simply replace that with the veneer of social justice or climate change or climate action or whatever, I go back to my earlier comment. They have to prove it. And I know I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but there's so much to this. I've clearly I've been immersed in this stuff for years, but there are signs of hope. We now have various different unions, some, I think 21 different states, attorneys general, at least one secretary of state, and all kinds of different groups out there that are now starting to balk, and lawsuits are popping up. I'm not generally a litigious sort of person, but I like the lawsuits. I think that they're good and they bode well. I think that these money managers need to be sued in order to push them back onto the rails because they got off the rails. They allowed themselves, so many of them. And again, I made the comment at the beginning of this live stream that I have exactly zero tangible proof, zero evidence from any money manager proving to me that what they're talking about, the veneer, the virtue signaling, is actually something solid. That's not okay. And that's where I'm going to switch back to, stand by 1 second, this other background screen. So as I said, I've done a bunch of episodes on this. The Make America Great Again, or the America First policy statement, I conflate those two expressions. I think they're both great. I definitely Make America Great Again. The America First investment policy is Donald Trump and his White House throwing down the gauntlet and saying, hey, finance, cut it out. Stop overfunding the woke far left globalists. I think that I mentioned both episodes. The two episodes that are connected to this that I suggest watching are Parade of Woke Sameness and The Globalist Bubble. That's the second one. Sorry. A few moments ago, I neglected to mention the second episode. Parade of Woke Sameness and Globalist Bubble. In it, I illustrate exactly what I'm talking about here. And so my view is that for those of us who didn't drink the Kool-Aid and we're not all caught up in the goofy, nonsensical, distracting mayhem of what our news is reporting, the fake news, and the distraction, the endless distraction of tariff this and manufacturing that or whatever, and look at the opportunity. Because most anybody that's going to be listening to this show believes in Make America Great Again and believes that we can bring production and productivity and manufacturing and all kinds of great things like it back to the United States. Well, you know how it happens? It happens when we fund it. We must fund it. And that's what the stock market is supposed to do. So if we agree to defund the woke, which means taking away the money from those overfunded mega globalists and putting money into America First. And as a note, I get this question all the time. America First doesn't necessarily mean only American companies. There are great companies all over the world that represent investment opportunity and the collaboration and expansion of American interests. I know that can seem confusing, and for some people, they'll choose to invest their money only in America, and that's fine. If you want global exposure, however, I suggest going back and watching or rewatching the episode that I did with Justin Bernier from the National Security Index, in which Justin described for us a report that was delivered to Congress in early 2024 showing that some of our Wall Street money managers are bypassing embargoes and investing in things they shouldn't be with your money. what I mean by that is some of the investment managers, some of those mutual funds and things like them, are using offshore managers to direct investments into things like the growth and expansion of the Chinese Communist Party's military, Navy fleet, US aircraft, or not US, CCP aircraft testing, ballistic missile testing, you name it, the manufacturing of war machine. We, according to this report that was delivered, are actually funding some of that stuff. So Justin Bernier exposes that. He runs the National Security Index. That's worth considering also. I've done the interview with him. Wherever you do your investing, take a look and consider National Security Index. I also did one with Matt Tuttle from Tuttle Capital. He's the guy that did, as funny as it is, he did the contra Kramer, the inverse Kramer, and he did ESGX, which means not investing in ESG. He's got one investment that's called guns, which supports Second Amendment and self-defense and those kinds of things. By the way, this is not investment advice. Clearly, I don't know you. You're welcome, of course. But this is exposing the research that we do. This is talking about what we do at UnWoke.Academy. And from that, the financial PMA and how that has organized itself. So all of this discussion takes place. It's part of this vibrant scene within the financial PMA. We talk a lot about these kinds of investments. I'm thankful to have access to some of these managers who are not woke, who see the problem for what it is, and that we can build these sorts of portfolios. But in my view, this America First policy statement, this investment policy, it is a tremendous opportunity. And I believe clearly, we have beginning indications, if we're able to return over 30% weighted average for an investor in 8 months by focusing, and yes, it's true actually. If you're watching the dates, I want to be clear about the span of dates. We started actually before this investment policy statement was released. We started in October 7th of last year, anticipating and and considering the now the likely and then imminent and the election of Donald Trump, or re-election of Donald Trump to office. That gets sort of complicated. I am also involved in politics and was watching those things closely. And as a predictive conversation, we were talking a lot about how to invest for a Trump administration. And there's actually, I did some episodes called a Trump aligned portfolio as well. It speaks on the same subject. But that predates this. Now that this is here, I think that is wildly, woefully irresponsible of our media, our politicians, and Wall Street to ignore it. Because I think, I suspect strongly that what's happening in these indexes like S&P 500 is that many of the stocks, including currently pharma, big pharma is a spotlight of mine. I talk a lot about it. I see that big pharma has significant headwinds, yet interestingly, the stock price is sort of propped up. It maintains this slow and steady propped up stock price. I suspect that's probably likely to continue, looking through my political lens, until just before the midterm elections. And I suspect that the markets, I have to air quote that because we've fallen into this trap of believing the media when they tell us that the S&P 500 is indicative of the market, or the Dow Jones Industrial Average, when that's not the market. It's a tiny, less than 1% of the investment markets. So that's a distraction. Looking at real companies and not paying attention to some index is really the way to go. And expanding on that, if you are the type of person who believes in index products, I encourage caution. There are some indexes out there that, well, just do your research and explore them. There are thousands of different indexes out there, But I think index hugging over the next couple of years, probably 5 or more, is going to be very problematic. And that includes those indexed annuities and things like them. I strongly suspect that we have some politicization. I think that's the word for it. So some manipulation, tongue tied all of a sudden. Some manipulation of some of those indexes. And I believe if that's true, that shortly before the midterms, we're likely to see some negative headlines and some negative moves in those markets. Well, why be in those anyway? Why be in them at all? If I can prove, and I have, I believe, if I can prove that those are wildly over consolidated into too few companies with most of the money, and we've been cash starving other business ventures, that's the opposite of free market economy. And that's the opposite of make America great again. That's not ever going to be America first. If we continue to fund those, I keep calling them 40-ish. There's like 40-ish companies that have received so much overfunding. It's ridiculous. And as an offshoot of that, this is crazy to me. There are figures out there that I've seen indicating that for 2024, the chairman of those companies, the ones that have gotten so preposterously overfunded, received an average bonus of over $16 million. That's for 1 year. Why the heck would we do that? Why wouldn't we take our money and fund the next new thing and participate in capital markets the way they're supposed to work? Not 40 companies getting all the world's money, because that's crazy. That's ridiculous. And from a prudence standpoint, it's called the prudent man standard or prudent best practices. The idea of having all these investments out there that are virtually identical, having 401k plans and things like them that have a lineup of different sounding mutual funds, and being able to show that they're all virtually identical, and having everything lead in, like funnel into these 40-ish companies, or virtually all of it, it's destructive and harmful. We don't want or shouldn't want any of that. So I guess my reason for bringing all of that up is this is twofold. I'm suggesting extreme caution where those indexes are concerned, and I'm suggesting that there are an array of great investment alternatives that are real companies, that are real growth potential all over the place. That's what we're researching at UnWoke.Academy. And that's how we're able to pull off, I'm going to bring it back up again here. It's just so cool. I'm so excited about this. I didn't expect those kinds of numbers. I really didn't. I was hoping for good numbers, and I saw some really good indication that these companies that have been handcuffed and really kind of strangled by the closure and collapsing of regional small community banks, and then the siphoning off of what should be capital markets funding businesses into those 40-ish companies. As soon as you take those constraints off, I think that there is massive opportunity. And so if you're one of those people that says, MAGA and America First, and you support Donald Trump and like this administration and Doge, and if you're on that side of the equation or any part of it, or just simply don't want your money put in harm's way, invested significantly in overfunded things, but want your money invested in ways that have, I argue, much greater growth potential, you should be looking at UnWoke.Academy. This is our research. It's all published. It's all out there. If you can afford to sponsor us, that'd be delightful. If not, there's no need to. We are on many different platforms. Much of it is on Substack. So we've got all kinds of long form things that are written up, some charts and info that we've pulled from various sources. We show you how to do it too. If you're the type like me who likes to do research, or you just want to verify my figures. And if you do find anything inaccurate, the door is open, the phone's on. You can call me or send a message. Let me know if you believe there you find an error anywhere in any of this or disagree. I'm happy to engage in debate and discussion because I'm on the right, and the right likes free market debate, discussion, all of that stuff. So I just have, I'm skimming my show notes now. Don't forget to like and follow this, share it with friends, bring them into the conversation. This is my first live talking about the PMA, what we're doing here. I did actually a survey a couple of months ago trying to find everyone's favorite time of day. I'm thinking I'm going to try to shoot to do this at noon Eastern every Wednesday. So we went live at noon. That was about 45 minutes ago. Um, if you're unable to meet us at that time and you have questions, send them to me. It's info@unwokeinvesting.com. Send questions to info@unwokeinvesting.com. Or when you see these videos live, you can post your comments or questions underneath. I will do my best to answer your questions. There is, if you'd like the research, we actually have it in spreadsheet form. Just same email address. Email and say that you'd like the spreadsheet. I'll send it to you. Have at it. That is caveat emptor, which means buyer beware. Although it's free, we give it to you, no strings attached. Take it to your financial advisor, team, whoever you work with, or do some of your own research. This is a starting point for we, the people, to find better ways to fund the things that we care about and fund a better, brighter future for ourselves that isn't woke, that isn't constantly having all of our money funneled into the very same mega companies that we constantly talk about boycotting and avoiding. Why fund them? Why not fund their competitor? As I said at the beginning, this is where the free market economy, the freedom economy, comes to meet follow the money. We're UnWoke.Investing. And as an offshoot of that, it's the financial PMA. So those are two websites. It is actually UnWoke.Academy. If you type that in, that's a website that will actually redirect for the time being to Substack, where you can find all kinds of information, a great library of detail, interviews that we're doing, etc. And the financial PMA is also a website, financialpma.com. Mark your calendar for next Thursday, a week from tomorrow, Thursday, June 12th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're hosting Laura Shar from Gold Standard Elections. Laura Shar is going to be our guest. She actually has been all over news media and is advocating for better elections systems and has all kinds of research and great data on gold standard elections. You can find her online. I will be posting some adverts for that. Again, that's 6:30 Eastern, Thursday, June 12th. I hope that you come back. That will be a live stream also. In the meantime, I hope everybody stays well, stay unwoke. Let's defund the woke. Oh, I have to throw my slogan in right before we sign off here. The slogan is diss the globalist left. That stands for know where you donate, invest, or spend your money. Because if you spend it the wrong places, those companies can and will come back to haunt us. I'm Jonathan Broadbent. Thanks for listening.